Hello, Zurich Game Show, and welcome to another panel that we have with some great stars that we invited to chat with us because they were lead figures behind the scenes of creating this marvelous game that is now on download on Steam. I'm talking about androids, decisions, endings, and revolution. Of course, it's about Detroit Become Human, and with me is the lead writer Adam Williams and the associate game director Gregory Diaconu. Bonjour and welcome. How are you guys?
Bonjour.
Well, thank you very much.
Very nice to be here.
Wonderful. So let's just dive real into it because I'm really excited about this panel because it's all about creativity for me. This is the exciting part of creating a game, to create worlds. So I will start with you, Adam. What's the process of you coming into this project? Because David Cage is known to write the stuff himself. So what exactly was your job and what did you really do as a lead writer?
Well, my previous experience had been in UK television, and I wanted to make the move into games. Wrote to David, and when I first got in touch with him and started working with him, he had a vision for Detroit already. So he knew, coming off the Kara short, which was a kind of a tech demo that got a surprisingly deep and broad response from audiences, he knew he wanted to do a story about androids. He knew he wanted to explore some of these more existential themes of what it means to be human and the ethics around AI and social disparity. Mm-hmm. So my role really wasn't on that side of it. My role was to try and help him flesh out and express the vision he had in the best possible terms. And you know, in that sense, story absolutely as broad as possible. You know, one of the advantages of having androids stand in as the oppressed class in the game meant that you, regardless of where you were from, at least that was the ambition. So trying to sort of globalize the story, really.
That sounds very promising, and you've succeeded in my account. The game is
That's
fantastic.
Kind of you.
It's really cool to play it, and for me, like from a design aspect, and especially from a narrative design aspect, because it's such a branched storytelling device that we were given as a player. How do you confront this, like these multitude of separations where the story can go, and to find the beats where you can branch off, or just like get things together again? How do you manage this? It sounds unimaginable.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell you that there is a single trick to make that easy or manageable, and there isn't. So the real answer is with great difficulty, and Greg can speak to this as well. The complexity gets exponential. Yeah. So it's not like two choices plus two choices. You need to multiply the number of cases by themselves minus one, and very quickly over an experience that lasts many hours, you have a huge number of cases. To be honest, the number of cases is not the only painful aspect to it. The other part that's very difficult and that takes a lot of thought is making sure that each path through the story is satisfying and reaches some kind of narrative closure and meaning for the player. Yeah. Because, you know, a given path might only be one of many hundreds or thousands from the point of view of the designers, but from the point of view of the players, that's the only playthrough they'll see. Yeah. And, you know, we wanted this number of variables so that every individual player would get their own version of the story. We think of it like fingerprinting. You know, there's so many combinations of story. Yeah. You will get your version of the story, and that's it. It will be unique to you statistically. So we need to make sure that whichever version you get, you still get a sense of closure, emotional climax, and so on. So that takes just as much time. And really, the only way to do it is to work very hard at it, but also I think to conceive of characters and stories that are not us telling you a story, which is more what I'm used to in TV, is you try and figure out the best version of a story and you just tell it. A good character for an experience like Detroit is a character who's built around interesting questions.
Yeah.
And then you pose those interesting questions to the player over and over again, and you manage his answers as honestly as you can. So it's there are things you can do in the conception of the story. You know, David's initial conception of the game was around this interesting dilemma of what are we going to do when machines are capable of expressing emotions and appearing to be conscious? What will our moral responsibility be? The fact that we didn't have a clear answer to that question made it easier to design lots of cases because they all had a kind of a plausibility to them. You know, it seemed plausible to us that things might go very badly, and plausible also that they might go well.
How was that for you, Greg, as a director to build this game from the scratch up? Like, where were what parts of the directing did you do, and what did you enjoy most of it, of this branched out colossus of a game?
So we started working, like as Adam said, it's not so much that we did one version of the story and then we added more and more. It's more like we build those characters, those scenes, those stories as being as questions. It's like Detroit is not a statement, it's a discussion for us. It's a way to tell, okay, let's ask a question to the player and see what he comes up with. So the design of the story started from here, and we built this incredible experience. And when we started to put that together and really build the moment to moment, then we realized that, yeah, that's a lot of work, right? And but there was no way around it. We tried to take every pass and make sure that they feel, exactly as Adam said, they feel very compelling for each players, because what we wanted to do is be true to the players. We have a lot of people with different views of the world, of different opinions, and it was very exciting to give them the opportunity to express themselves and to make. And so we worked really hard to make sure that whatever your choice, there is not a good version of the story and a secondary version of the story. Every choice is as valid for us. So that's, if you ask me what was the most exciting part of it, it was basically, we did a lot, for instance, of playtesting. And what's interesting in when we do playtest, like for instance, when you do a focus group or a playtesting for a movie, you see what version of the movie the people will prefer, and maybe you will do that version for content like the majority of the people. Here, we could see, like in that specific situation, some people wanted to maybe run and save the little girl Alice and try to run by themselves. Some people wanted to confront the father. And what we try is to make sure that every people could get their version of the story and really make the thing richer, the whole experience richer and more like compelling for everybody.
You just mentioned playtesting, which is a very interesting part for a game like yours. Because I would say in a generic game where you just have like one vision and one story, it's more like the technical aspects of a playtest.
Yes.
Of course, that is valid for your game as well. But did you start with this process earlier than like in another general game, that you could build upon the playtest groups, or was that a process that was added to the end to just refine the things that were already in there?
So it started on Detroit. We did it earlier that we did in previous games. In our previous games, it's not like as you said, in most games, usually when they playtest the game, they try like what happens if you press. What happens is like if this enemy is too hard, that kind of things, which is not exactly the thing that we look into. I think it was we had a very strong first version of the game that we believed in, and as we were building the scenes, we really wanted to have that feedback from the players to really like make them richer, as I said, and maybe like see what connected to the people, and see maybe sometimes there were choices that were too easy for us, like maybe like 100% of the players choose that version. And so we made sure that every dilemma was terrifying for players and pure torture. And so we really worked on that, and I think at the end we are very happy because we see all like the branching, the percentage of players who do such choice, and we are very happy to see that. Well, it's very much not black and white. Everybody has a good reason to make a choice, and this is really what we really aim.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first David Cage game that's out there. I mean, he has been at it with choice-driven games for...
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah. I remember Fahrenheit, like back in PlayStation 2 era times. How is it for you? Have you been working with him before, or was it the first time that you worked on a game with him?
So for me, I arrived, yes, was not the first time. I started in Quantic Dream 13 years ago.
That's
back
a long
on
time.
Heavy Rain. It's a long time, yeah. I was
a coffee out.
I was a programmer back in those days. Then moved to game design during Beyond Two Souls. Then moved to game directing during Detroit. So yes, there is something about the way we do games in Quantic Dream. There's a lot of people who have been there for quite some time. They know each other, they trust each other, and we have we love to bring in people who can give their input, give their vision of the world, which is why Adam brought so much to the writing of the game. And but there is a Quantic Dream way of doing games, which try like almost like a craft, not like almost artisanal in a way, which is let's try to do our things. If like what is the biggest success or whatever, let's try to do something different and try to do this. And even though we've done that for such a long time now, we still like to surprise ourselves. And every game is we want to find the coolest way to challenge ourselves in each game, and to make sure that it's not just the previous game with just a 2 at the end or just like a plus or like whatever, but to bring more and more and just make sure that everything is spectacular.
And how is it for you, Adam? Yeah.
Just to reinforce what Greg's saying there, I mean, what's happened with the lockdown and COVID is a good example of what Greg's talking about, because the culture at the company, a lot of people have been there a long time, as Greg says, and it has an intimate atmosphere. You know, the artisanal stuff that Greg's talking about. It is not, despite the company's size and the success that David's had commercially, the company has not been industrialized. It's not. It's not a manufacturing line. And you know, I'm working remotely now and have been for many months, and I know other people are too. And David and Greg and the company leadership don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the people they want, and don't allow things like the lockdown to stop that happening. And so that flexibility, you know, we're hiring now, and the search is entirely global, and is much more about somebody's skill set and somebody's outlook than it is where you might be located or whether you have big name titles on your CV. And that means that the experiences can be a bit more personal and have a bit more personality than they might do if they were more focus grouped or commercialized.
Yeah. I mean, the best example for that, for this heartfelt feeling in a way, is we had Brian on our panel at Zurich Game Show, Brian Duchard, and in the end it was one of the most amazing panels I've ever did, because there was this moment where this girl
not quite as good as this one.
One girl stood up as an android, and she asked Brian if he could sing with her the anthem of the rebellion. And in the end, everybody was standing. The whole room was just on their feet.
Seriously? This really happened?
This really happened. I'm not kidding.
This is so beautiful.
And to that point, I've never played this part of the story yet. And I just sat there, and it was just like shivers down my spine. And just the sheer dedication of the fans, of the people who played the game, was so amazing. It was so incredible. And this is like, in one part, your merit as well. I mean, you created this game, and you created this moment for so many people. I think I needed to share that with you.
But we can't overstate how much the community just brought to us, especially on this game. And Brian, of course, was an amazing leader in a way. The Connor Army, a great. He built such a great community, and we are so proud when we see all the fans and all the people can be inspired by what we do, because we are very much inspired by all the fan arts, by all those kind of moments. This is so touching. This is amazing. This is what keeps us going. Like as Adam said, this has been some complex times the last few months, and there is one thing that always makes me happy, is that maybe I would just tune on Twitch and see some players enjoying or discussing or just talking about the game and playing and arguing about the choices. Or that this is what fuels us. It's amazing.
Let's talk about the timelessness of stories for a second, because Detroit is a very story-driven game. I mean, there are technical aspects of it as well, obviously. But still, it's one of those games that can be played in years to come, because there's something that you as creators want to tell with it. How do you see it? How will that change the perception of video games in general?
Well, I mean, I think this goes to the question of video games as articles of culture.
Yeah.
So we think nothing of a movie or a TV series having an enduring popularity many years after it was initially released, because of the technical aspect of video games, as you say, and particularly the emphasis on graphics. I think, there's an assumption that a game which is 4 or 5 years old must be a cult classic if it's still popular, because that was so long ago. There's so many generations of console ago or whatever. I think David's take on this ever since the Fahrenheit days, and certainly I think what Greg and I have come to believe working with him, is that audiences do care about good stories, whatever the delivery mechanism is. So if they connect on a story level and on a character level with an experience, that will always endure in a way that it otherwise wouldn't. And so for that reason, I mean, the fact that we've broken the 5 million threshold with the Steam release and so on, years after the initial release, is a good sign, I think, of your thesis, which is that stories have a way of enduring in a sense that other media do not. And so I think in a sense it's David's initial gamble all those years ago to try and do story-rich games somewhat paying off. I don't know how you feel about that, Greg.
No, I fully agree. It's usually, and it's interesting seeing Detroit is still fairly recent, and I hope it gets it stays as enduring as some other game that we made. But it's still very touching to see people talk about Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls even years after. And why do they talk about it? It's not necessarily the graphics. It's not necessarily the action or something like that. It's the most moments when you did something that felt very visceral, something that felt very touching, when you had to do difficult choices. And at the end, you see that what people remember are those moments when they feel they felt something really personal was touched by the game. And we hope that Detroit can create the same enduring moments. And this is what we will keep on doing, whatever in the future.
Is there something when you think back, because it's been some years when you created this game or when you let it out in the world, was there some things where you think, that would have been a great DLC, or that would have been a great add-on to the whole story, from the point where you are now, years after you created it, where you think, if I could go back in time, that would be an interesting concept to bring in the game as well. Is there some not regrets? Regrets is a very strong word, but are there some choices that you would like to revisit when you think back?
What's interesting is that we are at a very interesting moment in Quantic Dream's history. Is that for a year now we became independent. We make our own. We are our own editor and publisher, and so having any regrets is not on the table for us, because everything is possible. And if fans ask for it and just claim for something, we will listen, of course, and that's something that having this is something big for us, is that we have the key of our own fate, and so we can't say like, oh, we regret not doing that, because if we felt that way, we would say the thing that we would say is, let's do it, right? And so yeah, of course there are some things, but somehow a game like Detroit, there were some stuff that we felt we have to cut for time and pacing, but we are so happy with the final result. So it's not so much that we would have changed thought about like, oh, we would have preferred to make it differently.
I think it's a very crafty question, if I may say so. Because, you know, we haven't talked about what we're doing next.
I know. I will get to that.
So, and but you know, as Greg says, Quantic's in a position to do whatever it likes. Yeah. But also, in addition, and this has come up in a few other forums as well, there's no technology in the game that didn't exist in a lab somewhere, to our knowledge, while we were working on it, with the exception of fully sentient machines. And one of the reasons we wanted that is we wanted the world to feel like a credible projection of the future, of the near future. And so in that sense, if you really think about it, you could generate that kind of content almost endlessly. Yeah. You think about all the things that are going to that may well go wrong in the next 10, 15 years. And I just think I was laughing as you were asking the question, because the one thing we never thought about was a biological pandemic. Yes. We had a digital pandemic, you know, but we didn't have a biological pandemic. And so the question you're really asking is, since the release, have there been any big historical incidents that we didn't see coming? And there's been quite a few.
True.
There's been some electoral results. There's been the lockdown. So, you know, certainly you however much content is in the game, we certainly could have done more and could still do more one day.
But this is the thing about science fiction in a way anyway. You take the times as it is at the moment and make a projection from the point of the things that you know.
And the quality then comes down to how credibly are you foreseeing the future?
Yeah.
Mm. And how credible do you want to be in dealing with these likely future events? You know, because I think a lot of the academic conversation around AI or the development of AI, you know, David read The Singularity, and he was reading a lot of material around this, and I know Greg's familiar with it too, when we were devising the game. And what you generally find in academic circles is either AI is going to solve all of our problems, or it's going to be a Skynet-style apocalypse. And you know, it was very intriguing to me when we were sort of developing Detroit to think about it in much more mundane terms, to think about it as a new social class, because it struck me as having the ring of truth. You know, it's not going to be a dramatic apocalyptic event, but by the same token, it's certainly not going to be without its unintended consequences, because nothing is. So, you know, it comes down in the end, I think, to the credibility of the science fiction.
But thinking about science fiction, and you had some like lead-ons in a way. There were some great Android stories out there, back to Isaac Asimov, to, of course, Blade Runner. I, Robot is another film that people out there may be familiar about. Was that something that you considered, that you, or were there some things that you took out of those films that you thought about, of just like, this is an interesting way of how they dealt with these problems that we are thinking about at the moment? Where were your inspirations, or what did you what did you read to find your own answers to those very big questions that are not really answerable?
That's what was interesting, is that we didn't really have to come up with the answer. It was more interesting for us not to come and say this is what it should be or how it should be, is to really like put you in the shoes of those androids. It was important to not make them the other, to say, or this exterior thing that you have to decide what yourself in their shoes and ask yourself what you would do. And so the question was more about the one of the points of the game was also to let the player come up with their own answers. And maybe they would choose to create a conflict with the human. Maybe they would choose to create, to get closer, and maybe or try to find what is a human or what is being alive at its core. And that was for us the angle to get into these difficult questions.
So it's less about.
I think that's right.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's absolutely right. As Greg says, you don't want to try and solve the question for the player. The player's directing his own story. I think we were certainly all reading a lot of science fiction. I know Greg was as well, and David and I. And the thing that is kind of obvious about all good science fiction, at least to our minds, is however fanciful the technological projection is, or however fanciful the setting is, good science fiction is always really about how people cope with the new reality. And so in that sense, I think if you really want, if you copy good science fiction, you're not really learning from it, because what you should be learning from good science fiction is the unfamiliarity of the situation is exactly what's going to make readers and audiences pay attention, because they want to know, how would people actually cope in this totally unfamiliar setting. So, the minute we had androids, we knew they needed to be different from the androids you've seen in other places. They couldn't be superhumans. They couldn't be Commander Data. They couldn't be, polished steel butlers. They had to be something different. And the question was, what fresh, unforeseen circumstance has this produced in human society, and how do the humans of the day cope with it? That's when science fiction's at its best, I think.
I can absolutely agree. You sprinkled it throughout the interview at the moment. You're working like crazy on something new from at home. You're hiring. It's obvious that with the success of Detroit, there will be something coming from Quantic Dreams in the future. Is there something that you can tease, or just like drop some hints? If you can't, we can absolutely. Okay, good.
You can accommodate it, I'm sure.
We can't talk about anything for the future right now. What we can say is that, and we are still, as Adam said, hiring a lot of people with passion that could be interested. And that's the thing, is the way the COVID changed or the way we work all across the world. Like Adam currently is in London, I'm in Paris, and we can still talk together every day and work on everything. This really changed our outlook on how we want to work with great talents. Regarding for the rest, we can't tell about it, but we hope that in the meantime, you can absolutely enjoy the game on Steam and bring on everything that you want in terms of fan art and the passion. And this is we can't wait until we can tell you about more things.
The thing is, if you really want to know what we're doing next, the best thing to do is get yourself hired.
What a good sales pitch! Are you a writer by chance?
Don't think that. I can't emphasize enough how little pressure there's been for people to physically relocate now.
Yeah.
The whole outlook on the way working works has changed, and remoteness of location just is not a barrier anymore. As Greg says, he and I work hand in glove every day, and with David and with others. And we're all citizens of the digital world now. So anybody watching from all over the world, who has a lot of passion and a skill set, by all means, write to us, because we have big plans and we're going to need a lot of help.
So
that's as much as we can say.
You know what? I want to drop one thing.
Yes, please.
One small thing, just for you. What we can say, this is the only thing we can say. As I said, we are now independent, and we are working on multiple projects. And that's not much to say, but that's something that we are excited for, because this is the first time, like I've been there for a while, as I said, and this is the first time we can have that outlook. and this is very exciting. So yeah, this is a very exciting time for Quantic Dream right now, to be in Quantic Dream right now. So stay tuned.
It's so fun when you say things like that. It's the giddiness and the joy that you're sitting on information and you're so happy about them and you're so proud of them. I hope we don't seem too happy
about it. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I mean, we get it. We get it. But it's like this feeling that we get when you say things like that makes us just like ache more for the things to come. And yeah, I'm really happy for you guys.
This is like a great time to be creative in this industry, as you know. Like next gen is coming. There are a lot of things very exciting that are changing every day in this industry, and I think it's a great time to build some exciting stuff. And yeah, it's great to work like right even in these difficult times. Being excited by what you do is what makes it worth, I would say.
I think this is a perfect closing statement, really.
Okay.
What can we add to that? Adam, Greg, it's been an utmost pleasure to talk to you guys, and I hope that as soon as Zurich Game Show will be back live and in colour, that you could join us in Switzerland to elaborate on maybe one or two of the projects that you're working on. And until then,
we'd be delighted to come back anytime.
Wonderful. We hear you, and we will come back to it.
Take us up on the offer.
We will.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And it's been an utmost joy. And stay up late so you can work a bit more.
Okay. Thanks for the tip. I'll do that. It was lovely meeting you.
Thank you.
Yes, great.
And hello to everybody watching. Thank you for all the support. It means a lot to us.
So go now to Steam and download Detroit Become Human if you haven't done so already. It's well worth it.
Get it off your wish list.
Do that.
And into the basket.
Yeah.
Ciao.